As Rhaegar was recently brought up on the show, I thought it was a good time to release a Rhaegar history video. If it isn't up yet, my Game of Thrones Episode 4 review will be up soon. In 259 AC, King Aegon V, the 15th Targaryen king to sit the Iron Throne, would invite those closest to him to Summerhall, his favorite castle, to celebrate the impending birth of his first great-grandchild, to his grandson Aerys and granddaughter Rhaella, the children of Prince Jaehaerys. But a terrible tragedy occurred. The castle went up in flames, killing the king and many others. Outside of Summerhall, with the fires blazing, Rhaella gave birth to Rhaegar Targaryen, a baby with silver hair and purple eyes. A baby that would one day grow into a man that took Lyanna Stark and helped plunge the Seven Kingdoms into a civil war, destroying the Targaryen dynasty. Rhaegar has been described as able, determined, deliberate, dutiful, and single-minded. Everything he did well. However, there was also a sadness in Rhaegar, a look as if he had been wounded, a sense of doom that surrounded him. Some state that it wasn't in the prince to be happy, and being born in grief, a shadow hung over him always. No one truly ever knew the man, as he was an incredibly private person. Rhaegar grew up at King's Landing, and after his birth, with his parents being so young, many were convinced he would soon have brothers and sisters to play with. When Rhaegar turned 3, his father ascended to the throne as King Aerys II, later to be known as the Mad King. Rhaegar continued living in King's Landing until he was 8 years old, when his father took half the court, minus the queen who was pregnant, to Lannisport and Casterly Rock, following the death of his hand, Tywin Lannister's father. There, for the better part of the following year, the king and his hand ruled the Seven Kingdoms. Rhaegar, his father, and the court would move back to King's Landing in 268 AC. As a child, Rhaegar loved reading. He was so obsessed with it and started at such a young age that men joked his mother had swallowed some books and a candle while he was still in her womb. Devoted to his books, Rhaegar took no interest in the play of other children, and maesters were awed by his intelligence. Some knights jested that Baelor the Blessed had been born again. However, in those dusty tombs he was so fond of, one day Rhaegar found something, a prophecy, and it convinced him that he needed to become a warrior. Sometime after reading the prophecy, Rhaegar suddenly appeared early one morning in the yard as the knights were dressing. He approached the master-at-arms and said, "I will require sword and armor. It seems I must be a warrior." And he began training. As he grew up at King's Landing, Rhaegar became close friends with Arthur Dayne, a Kingsguard and the Sword of the Morning, and Arthur would remain his closest and oldest friend his entire life. As a boy, Rhaegar also met Jon Connington, who was a squire like him at King's Landing. Jon desperately tried to get Rhaegar's royal favor, and eventually the boys did become friends. And it is believed that Jon loved Rhaegar in a way that the prince never returned. Jon still remembers Rhaegar lovingly, and in one fond memory of Rhaegar, Jon remembers the prince returning from Dorne and spending a fortnight with his escort at Jon's home, Griffin's Roost. Jon's father held a welcoming feast for the prince, and at it, Rhaegar played his harp, a song of love and doom, and every woman in the hall was weeping by the time he put his harp down. Later, Rhaegar went to the top of the tallest tower with Jon, and looking over his friend's land, told Jon that his father's lands were beautiful. Jon remembers trying to impress the prince, and remembering how foolish that was. At the age of 17, Rhaegar was knighted. Though he was a highly skilled and capable fighter, as he was good at anything he put his mind to, the prince didn't enjoy fighting, and seldom enlisted in tourneys. He did love playing his harp with the silver strings and singing, though. As mentioned in one of Jon's fond memories, Rhaegar's voice and songs were so beautiful that it made women weep wherever he played. Some of these beautiful songs were created after his occasional visit to Summerhall, where he was born and the place he loved best. With only his harp and no escort, he would stay in the ruined palace. What exactly he expected to find there isn't known, but he always came back with a song. And when he played his harp and sang, those listening couldn't help but feel that he was singing of himself and those he loved. In 276 AC, after many miscarriages and stillbirths, Aerys II and his wife would have a boy, Prince Viserys. At this time, Prince Rhaegar was 17, and everything that could be wanted in an heir. But still the realm rejoiced that Rhaegar had a little brother, and another that could take his place should he die. Tywin Lannister held a grand tournament in Lannisport to celebrate Viserys' birth, and Rhaegar, newly knighted, competed wearing his black plate over golden ringmail, with long streamers of red, gold, and orange silk coming from his helm like flames. At night at the tourney, Rhaegar played his silver harp, making women, including Cersei Lannister, weep. During the day at the tourney, he unhorsed many, including 2 of Tywin Lannister's brothers, and even managed to outdo Sir Barristan Selmy. The crowd cheered twice as much for Tywin than Aerys II, but twice as loudly for Rhaegar than Tywin. Regardless of how much the crowd cheered for others, the entire tourney, Aerys II cheered for his son. However, in the Champions Tilt, Rhaegar lost to Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. But Rhaegar would pay Sir Arthur back at the tourney at Storm's End, where he broke 12 lances against him. After the tourney at Lannisport, Aerys II appointed children of some of his favorites as squires to Rhaegar. First, Miles Mouton was his squire, and then Richard Lonmouth. When they won their spurs, Rhaegar knighted them, and they remained his close companions. So, at this point in 276 AC, all seemed well in the realm. Aerys II had 2 healthy boys to ascend to the throne after him. His heir Rhaegar was an intelligent man and a capable warrior, and the 7 kingdoms prospered under Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. But that would all change as madness set in, and Rhaegar's father began to fall into a hold of paranoia and fear. Soon the love Aerys II had for his son Rhaegar turned to suspicion. As Aerys II grew in madness, he suspected his son of treachery. This paranoia would continue to grow, but after the defiance of Duskendale in 277 AC, Aerys II began to believe that Rhaegar conspired with others to have him killed or removed from the throne, so that Rhaegar could take his place. While few noticed his madness before the defiance of Duskendale, post the event, people were finally noticing Aerys II's strange behavior. Whispers began about Aerys, and people started to look to Rhaegar, with some even outright stating that if Aerys II were to die, they had a better king waiting. In 278 AC, mostly due to Rhaegar's father's suspicions, Steffon Baratheon was sent across the Narrow Sea to find a bride for Rhaegar, a maid of noble birth from an old Valyrian bloodline. Maesters believe the fact that this task wasn't left to Rhaegar himself spoke volumes for his father's trust of him. Unfortunately, no bride would be found for the prince, and on Lord Baratheon's way home, his ship sank, killing Lord Baratheon and his wife. Aerys II was convinced that Steffon's ship was purposely sabotaged, and he continued to believe Rhaegar plotted against him. This, as one can imagine, led to an estrangement between the men. The distance between them only became wider as the years went on. In 279 AC, Rhaegar became betrothed to Princess Elia Martell of Dorne, and they wed in a lavish ceremony at the Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. John Connington believed Elia Martell wasn't good enough for Rhaegar, but from all accounts, Elia and Rhaegar got along, and Rhaegar was fond of his delicate wife. Elia was described as good, kind, and clever, with a gentle heart and a sweet wit. Despite getting married in King's Landing, Rhaegar's father didn't attend the wedding, fearing an attempt on his life would happen. Rhaegar's little brother, Viserys, was also restricted from attending his brother's wedding. Following the wedding, Rhaegar moved with his new wife to Dragonstone instead of the Red Keep, which caused instant rumors that the Crown Prince was planning to depose of Aerys II and seize the Iron Throne. In 280 AC, Rhaegar's wife Elia gave birth to a girl, Rhaenys, on Dragonstone. Elia was bedridden for half a year after giving birth to Rhaenys. Rhaegar would eventually take the baby to court where his mother embraced the child, but Aerys II refused to touch or hold the baby, and complained that she smelled Dornish. Insulting someone's child isn't a great way to win their love, and the two men grew even more distant. In 281 AC, Tywin Lannister resigned as Hand of the King. With Tywin back in Casterly Rock, Aerys II's paranoia focused more on Rhaegar. Grand Maester Pycelle worried that the level of division, mistrust, and tension was resembling the Dance of the Dragons, and he feared a civil war would break out between those loyal to Rhaegar and those loyal to Aerys II. Rhaegar had many of the younger men at court on his side, including Jon Connington, Sir Miles Mouton of Maidenpool, and Sir Richard Lonmouth. He also had the Dornishmen who came to court with Princess Elia on his side, which included the Kingsguard and Elia's uncle, Prince Lewin Martell. However, out of all these men, Arthur Dayne was still Rhaegar's closest and most formidable ally. On the opposite side, most of the older generations supported Aerys II, and those that would lose standing if Aerys was removed from the throne. It seemed tensions were running high in the Seven Kingdoms, as a madman sat the throne, and the madman's son won more and more love and respect from the people. In part 2, I'll talk about Rhaegar and the events that led to the taking of Lyanna Stark and the end of the Targaryen dynasty. At least for now. Thank you for watching. Liking the video is greatly appreciated. Come back for more Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire history videos, which are going to be on a less rigid schedule during the Game of Thrones season. Also, we're going to deviate from the north a tiny bit for about another month and a half. Afterwards, we'll go back to a more steady schedule. Have a great week.